Ladies and gentlemen, you ever catch the way you talk to yourself? If you spoke to your friends the way you speak to yourself, would you even have any? For the next 3 days, I want you to try something simple but powerful. Talk to yourself like someone you're actually rooting for. Not perfectly, not artificially, just honestly, and with a little more care. Because the tone you set with yourself, that becomes your reality. Let's change that tone together. You ever notice how your voice changes depending on who you're talking to? With a friend, maybe you're patient. With a stranger, you're polite. But with yourself, that tone can get sharp real fast. Not always in the words, but in the weight behind them. See, we talk a lot about affirmations, about positive self-talk, about speaking life over ourselves. That's all good. But sometimes it's not even about what you say, it's how you say it. You could tell yourself, I've got to do better. And it might sound motivational one day, the next, it sounds like shame. Why? Because the tone change. Because your nervous system doesn't just hear words, it feels tone. Some of us have been talking to ourselves in a voice we picked up years ago. Maybe it came from a parent who meant well but didn't know how to show grace. Maybe it came from a coach or a teacher or even just life. It trained you to be hard, cold, urgent, unforgiving. So now when you mess up, that's the voice that answers, the one that says, of course you did, the one that sighed in disappointment before you even get the sentence out, the one that's always rushing you to the next thing, but never stopping to say, hey, I see you trying. And the wild thing is, we think that voice is productive. We think if I go soft on myself, I'll lose my edge. Let me tell you something. Self-compassion doesn't make you soft. It makes you sustainable. That voice in your head becomes the environment you live in. And I don't care how high your goals are. If you're breathing in self-rejection all day long, you're going to burn out. So here's what I want you to try for just 3 days. Watch the tone of your self-talk. I don't mean sugarcoat everything. I don't mean ignore reality. I mean this. If you make a mistake, talk to yourself like someone who still deserves dignity. If you feel overwhelmed, don't bulldoze through it. Acknowledge it. Then move forward with kindness. If you're tempted to say, I'm so stupid, pause, try that. Didn't go how I wanted, but I can learn from it. Same moment, same truth, very different tone. Sometimes changing your tone is as simple as softening your breath before you respond to your own thoughts. Sometimes it's saying, this is hard, instead of pretending everything's fine. And sometimes it's just adding a pause, a little space between what happened and how you talk to yourself about it. You might be surprised what happens when you stop attacking yourself before the world even gets a chance to. I get it. This isn't flashy. It's not some breakthrough productivity hack, but it's foundational because the relationship you have with yourself, that's the filter for every relationship in your life. If your inner tone is always rushed, you'll rush other people. If it's constantly disappointed, you'll carry that energy into everything you do. But if your inner tone starts to shift just a little bit, you begin to experience yourself differently. You start showing up with a steadiness that doesn't rely on everything going right. And over time, that tone becomes your new normal. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped making it harder than it had to be. Try it for 3 days. Just change the tone. Do you ever notice how fast your mind runs when something goes wrong? Like one small mistake, and suddenly there's a whole committee in your head dragging you through every failure you've ever had. That inner voice doesn't just whisper, it spirals fast, and without even realizing it, you're not responding to reality anymore. You're reacting to a storyline that voice created. We all have that voice, the one that narrates your life like it's breaking news. You blew it. They probably think less of you now. Why do you keep doing this? It's constant and it's convincing because it sounds like you. But just because a thought comes from your own head doesn't mean it's true or helpful or even fair. That voice, it's not evil. It's trying to protect you. It learned early on that if it gets loud enough, maybe you'll fix the problem faster. Maybe you'll avoid embarrassment. Maybe you'll stay one step ahead of shame. But in the process, it forgets how to be kind. It forgets that you're human, not a machine. And if you don't catch that voice, if you don't interrupt it, you start following it like it's the whole truth. So here's what I want you to practice. Interrupt the narrator when that voice kicks in. Pause. Step back. Notice it. Name it. That's my fear talking. That's anxiety trying to keep me in control. That's an old voice. I don't have to go with it. Simple phrases, but they break the trance. They remind you that you are the thinker, not the thought. It's not about arguing with your mind. It's not about fighting every negative idea that comes up. It's about choosing which ones you actually want to partner with. You get to decide if a thought gets airtime or not. And just like a bad radio station, you can switch the frequency when it starts playing something that's messing with your peace. Sometimes interrupting that narrator sounds like this. I hear you, but I'm not going there today. Other times it sounds like, okay, I messed up. That doesn't mean I am a mess. That voice will try to take you all the way down a road of shame, and all you have to do is take the first exit. Now, this isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about protecting your energy so you can deal with what's real. You don't need a 30-minute mental punishment just because you forgot something or didn't handle something perfectly. You need a clear head and a calm heart so you can fix what needs fixing and move on. And here's what's wild. You don't even need to be 100% confident to interrupt the narrative. You just need to be willing to question it. That's where the shift starts. The second you say, what if this voice isn't telling the whole story? You're not stuck in the loop anymore. You've got leverage. You've got perspective. There's power in that pause, that space between hearing your inner critic and deciding not to give it the mic. In that moment, you reclaim your ability to speak to yourself instead of just reacting to yourself. You don't have to silence every negative thought. You just have to stop letting it run the show. You're not weak for having those spirals. You're human, but you're also strong enough to interrupt them. And when you start doing that consistently, even for 3 days, you'll be shocked at how much quieter that inner chaos becomes. Not because life changed, but because you did. Interrupt the narrator. You ever have someone believe in you before you believed in yourself? That kind of voice sticks with you. It doesn't pressure you. It pulls you forward. It doesn't shame you into action. It reminds you who you are when you forget. That's the kind of voice we all need. But too often, we wait for it to come from someone else, when the truth is you can be that voice for yourself. Most of us don't even realize how harsh our self-talk has become. We think we're just being honest with ourselves, holding ourselves accountable. No fluff, no sugarcoating. But there's a line between being honest and being harmful. And too many of us cross it daily thinking we're doing ourselves a favor. If someone you loved made a mistake, you wouldn't look them in the eye and say, you're always messing things up. You wouldn't say, why can't you get it together? And yet, that's how we talk to ourselves automatically without question. And over time, that kind of tone trains your brain to expect failure, not growth. What if instead you started talking to yourself the way a good coach would? I'm not talking about cheerleading or fake positivity. I'm talking about that calm, steady, firm, but fair kind of coaching. The kind that says, okay, here's what happened, and here's how we're going to fix it. The kind that doesn't ignore the mistake, but also doesn't reduce you to it. That's a whole different posture. A coach doesn't yell at you because you're worthless. A coach gives you direction because you have potential. That's the energy you need to bring into yourself to talk. The moment you slip up, instead of going into that mental spiral of blame or frustration, ask yourself, if I were mentoring someone through this exact moment, what would I say? And 9 times out of 10, you'd say something a whole lot more helpful than what you just told yourself. There's strength in self-correction, but there's also strength in self-sport. We're not taught that. We're taught to toughen up, push through, keep grinding. But here's the truth. It's easier to push yourself when you feel safe with yourself, when your internal voice is grounded, not aggressive, clear, not cruel. When you mess up, do you speak like someone who wants to see you win or someone who wants to punish you for losing? Because the way you talk to yourself in failure, that's the blueprint for how you'll move forward. If the conversation becomes, you're such a screw up, then your brain will start preparing for more failure. But if the tone is all right, that didn't go well. Let's reset. Now, your energy is in solution, not shame. That small difference, that's what makes real growth possible. You know what else happens when you start coaching yourself? Instead of criticizing, you build trust with yourself. And trust changes everything. When your inner voice becomes a safe space, you stop avoiding your reflection. You stop numbing out. You stop pretending everything is fine because you're afraid of how you'll treat yourself when it's not. It doesn't mean you let everything slide, but it means when you mess up, you meet yourself with clarity and care. That's how you actually learn. That's how you move from survival mode into something sustainable. So try it just for 3 days. Every time you catch yourself spiraling or being overly critical, ask, would I say this to someone I'm trying to help? If the answer is no, then pause, reframe. Shift from scolding to coaching. Speak with the tone of someone who knows you're capable, not someone who's tired of being disappointed. Because when you talk to yourself like you want yourself to grow, you will coach yourself forward. You ever notice how loud fear gets when you're standing still? Like the moment you're unsure, fear steps in and starts filling in the blanks for you. Usually with worst case scenarios, you'll probably mess this up. They won't take you seriously. Why even try? And what's tricky is that fear doesn't always show up screaming. Sometimes it whispers just enough doubt to make you second guess yourself and stay stuck. Here's what I want to say to that. Your fear is not a prophet. It's just loud. It gets its power when you let it become the narrator of your future. But what if you change the script? Most of us speak to ourselves from the place we're trying to escape. We use the language of frustration and the language of fear. The language of, I never get this right, or this is just how I am. And then we wonder why we keep repeating the same cycles. What if instead you spoke to yourself from the place you want to be? The version of you who's not defined by failure or held hostage by the past, but who's figuring it out, becoming, growing. It doesn't have to be some grand confident declaration. It could just be a subtle shift. Instead of saying, I'm terrible at this, try, I'm still learning this. Instead of, I always screw this up, try, I'm working on getting better at this. It might sound small, but it's not, because every word you speak to yourself is shaping your identity, even the quiet ones. And when your identity is tied to fear, progress feels dangerous. But when your identity starts to root in growth, in hope, in the possibility of more things open up, you start moving not because fear disappeared, but because your future voice got louder than your fear voice. Some of us are waiting to feel completely ready before we change how we talk to ourselves. But here's the truth. You won't feel ready at first. It's going to feel awkward, even fake, when you start saying things like, I can handle this, or I've got something valuable to offer. And that's okay, because this isn't about tricking yourself. It's about training yourself. You're training your mind to see you, not as you were, but as you were becoming. Think about it this way. If you were building a house, you wouldn't look at the first few bricks and say, this is garbage. It's not even livable yet. No, you'd understand that it's a process, that it doesn't have to be finished to be going somewhere. Same goes for you. Don't talk to yourself like you're a failure just because you're in the middle of construction. That future version of you, the one who's more grounded, more confident, more at peace, that version isn't waiting to magically show up one day. It starts showing up now. Every time you choose to speak from where you're going, not just where you're stuck, you have to lead yourself there. And leading yourself doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It means when fear shows up with its long list of what ifs, you answer with even one what if. It does work. Fear's favorite trick is to get you to rehearse failure before you've even tried. So flip it. Rehearse growth. Rehearse strength. Rehearse what it would feel like to succeed. Not perfectly, but genuinely. Because the more you speak from the future, the more you create space to grow into it. You're not lying to yourself. By speaking with hope, you're reminding yourself that fear doesn't get the last word. You do speak from where you're going. You ever try something new for a day or two and then give up because it didn't feel natural? Like you tell yourself, all right, I'm going to be kinder to myself. And for a few hours, you really try. You're aware of your tone. You slow down. You check in with your thoughts. But then stress hits. Life gets loud. And before you even notice, you're back to being short with yourself, hard on yourself, impatient again, and you think, well, maybe this just isn't me. But it's not that it isn't you. It's just not your habit yet. See, we don't change by doing something once. We change by doing it consistently, not perfectly, just consistently. Over time, that repetition starts to rewire the way we respond. And that's the part a lot of people miss. It's not about some magical breakthrough moment. It's about what you do on day 2 and day 3 and every small, quiet moment after that when no one's watching, but your thoughts are still talking. You've been speaking to yourself a certain way for years, maybe even decades. So of course it's going to feel awkward to change the script. Of course it's going to feel unnatural at first to talk to yourself with more compassion, with more calm, with more patience. But just because it feels unfamiliar doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means you're doing something new. And new takes practice. You want to know how real growth happens. It's in those moments when you don't feel like being gentle with yourself, but you do it anyway. When your instinct is to criticize, but instead you pause and offer yourself just a little bit of grace. Not because you've earned it, not because everything's going great, but because you've decided that's the kind of environment you're building in your own mind. And that's what this really is. Environment. The way you talk to yourself creates the emotional climate you live in. If your default tone is always tense, rushed, sharp, or disappointed, then even your small wins feel heavy. But if your tone is steady, if it's curious, if it's forgiving, then even your tough days don't take you out as quickly. It's not that kindness makes life easier. It just makes it livable. But that kind of tone, compassionate, grounded, stable, it doesn't come from a one-time pep talk. It comes from repetition, from choosing the tone before you feel like it. From this is how I'm going to treat myself now, not for today, for good. And you're not going to get it right every time. That's not the point. You're going to have moments where you slip back into old patterns. That's normal. The goal isn't to never criticize yourself. The goal is to notice when you do and recover quicker. The win isn't in perfection. It's in consistency. And if you stick with it 30 days, 5 days a week, you'll start to notice something. You begin trusting yourself more. You begin showing up with more calm, more presence. You stop bracing for your own voice to tear you down. You stop walking through life like you're one mistake away from being your own enemy again. You start feeling safe inside your own head. And let me tell you, there is nothing more powerful than that. Because when you build consistency, you build stability. And when you build stability, you build resilience. That's what gets you through the chaos. Not just discipline, not just grit. Bath compassion with consistency. So, when the voice in your head wants to go back to old ways, gently remind it, we don't talk like that anymore. Not because we're trying to be perfect, but because we finally decided to be kind. Try it for 3 days. That's it. 3 days of consistent tone. You'll feel the shift, maybe not on day 1, maybe not even on day 2, but keep showing up. And something inside you will start to settle, to strengthen, to believe. Again, consistency builds compassion. You've been living with your own voice longer than anyone else ever will. And that voice, it shapes how you see yourself, how you move through the world, how you handle setbacks, and how you show up when no one else is watching. This isn't about hype. It's not about pretending you've got it all figured out. It's about choosing just for a few days to speak to yourself like someone who matters, someone worth being patient with, someone who's growing, not failing, someone who deserves the same level of respect you so easily give to others. Watch your tone. Interrupt the spiral, coach yourself forward, speak from your future, be consistent with your compassion. Try it for 3 days. That's it. Talk to yourself like you actually want to see yourself win, because everything changes when you finally